Vicissitudes of politics, as it's just what they are, vicissitudes.
But isn't it a little bit more than a vicissitude to drop out of the European Union? I mean, is the
I'm not suggesting it isn't a good deal, but this country was enormously helped when we put all the colonies together. If we had internal tariffs against each little colony, the United States would not be as big as it is. So it's understandable why Europe wanted to get together. And in addition to the advantages they got from the free trade, they'd had a long history of having wars. And we all are in sort of one big place trading with one another. It'll be safer. Those were very good ideas. I'm not quarreling with the basic ideas. On the other hand, if you have unlimited immigration from one country to another, that causes lots of strains. Look at Germany. Merkel brought in more immigration than her people she wanted. She was leading a parade and she looked back and nobody was following. So these very few people want unlimited immigration of a different culture. We made it work in America, but we had a vacant continent to work on. It was easy. Vacant and rich, oil, minerals, wonderful soil.
Should we still be letting immigrants into this country?
I think we should have way more control of our borders than we do.
Isn't that different?
John Trump is right on that, and I think the Democrats are committing suicide by being so. They hate him so much that they're against him even when he's right.
It seems like the borders is conflated with immigration policy sometimes, though, right? I mean, in other words,
of course they are.
Yeah.
But I think we ought to have some control over immigration, some effective control. I think the bulk of the people want to be very nice to the people that are already here, including all the people from Latin America, but they want more control over the inflows.
Are you concerned about this rise of somewhat nationalistic leadership around the world, like in Turkey, in Brazil, in China, in the United States, arguably?
Well, take Brazil. Who in the hell would like Brazil? It's a great climate and a great country, but they're screwing it up to a fairly well.
You mean the new leader or just what's happened previously?
What's happened generally.
Yeah. Okay. So does that require a strong man to take over, though?
Well, I don't think I've got deep knowledge on exactly what works well in the internal politics of every other country. Who would have guessed that the Chinese communists would improve their big country as much as they have in the last 30 years?
That surprised you?
Well, they didn't. The first 20 years, they had the Cultural Revolution. It was crazy. And now they have one of the greatest success records in the history of mankind. I don't know about you, but I did not predict it.
I didn't. But so what is the secret to China's success then?
They copied Singapore.
Which
and
is?
Remember, the communist leader said, I don't care if the cat is black or white, I care whether it catches mice. And they copied a very wonderful, famous Chinese man in Singapore. And lo and behold, they found the right Chinese leadership outside of China, which amuses me. Now, he was Chinese. But look at the way it worked. In the whole history of the world, no nation that big has ever advanced that fast. And they did it by having a bunch of poor people save half their income. They did not use the wealth of the rich world to get ahead. They used the savings of poor people. I am a huge admirer of what the Chinese have accomplished. And if you ask me who is the one man who did the most for China, it was Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. They copied him.
Are you still sanguine about the future for China right now? There's a lot of concerns about slowing growth and leverage in the system.
I'm quite optimistic. They've been succeeding for a long time. Sure, they have ups and downs, and they make mistakes as well as good decisions. But if you average them out, the Chinese are getting ahead. They're not moving backward.
What do you think the economic relationship between China and the United States looks like, say, 2 years from now?
Well, if both sides have any sense, they will be better and better friends. and adjust all differences. It is stark raving madness on either side not to make a friend of the other really powerful nation on earth.
I want to ask you a little bit about some Silicon Valley stuff. I mean, you said yesterday you were ashamed of missing on Google.
Yeah, I am. We could see, if we looked carefully at our own companies, that their advertising was working way better than other advertising. Just we weren't paying enough attention.
So is it too late?
I don't know. I don't know everything, you know.
Well, we'll leave that aside. But, you know, you look at these tech investments. So there's Apple, now Amazon. Did you know about the Amazon purchase? Were you involved in that decision?
No, of course not. I've never owned a share of Amazon. I am a huge admirer of Bezos. I think he's been sort of like Lee Kuan Yew. He's a leader that's all by himself. He's been just a perfectly amazing human leader. But it's always been too complicated and uncertain for my particular temperament.
It's interesting.
And I find other things to do that'll work fine.
Someone was telling me the other day that they thought that you could actually sort of think of Apple and Amazon not as technology companies so much, but as big branded growth businesses, which would be something that would be appealing to you.
Well, I think they're both
right.
brands and technologies, and it's hard to separate the effect of one from the other.
Okay. And as far as what's going on in Silicon Valley right now with IPOs, unicorns going public and not having any profitability or any prospect of profitability in the near term, what do you think of that situation?
Well, there are a whole lot of things I don't think about. And one of them is companies that are losing $2 or $3 billion a year and going public. It's not my scene.
Have you looked, so you're not interested in Uber or companies like that necessarily?
Well, I have to be interested when they're that important and sweep the world and change practice. But I don't have to invest in everything I'm interested in. I'm looking for things where I think I can predict what's going to happen with a high degree of accuracy. And I have no feeling that I have the ability to do that with Uber.
Right. I want to ask you about architecture, which is something you've been interested in for a while. How did you get interested in that, and what is your current
well, I had an
situation
uncle
there?
who was an architect, and I've always thought it was the queen of the arts. In other words, I think architecture does more good than painting or sculpture. So I think architecture is hugely important, very interesting, and does such enormous good when it's done right. So I'm a big admirer of the potentiality of the profession. But I think a lot of people go into architecture because they're sort of frustrated sculptors, and they don't think with enough common sense or uncommon sense about what the hell they're doing.
What are some projects that you've been involved with, though?
Oh, I've built houses, I've built office buildings, I've built apartment houses. I've helped charities and educational institutions build things. I've built science centers. I do a lot of it. I like it.
Is this a creative outlet for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have some projects that you're working on right now, some architecture
course.
projects? What are they about?
Well, I'm working on projects at UCSB, University of California at Santa Barbara, and it's basically housing, but of several kinds.
I want to shift gears and ask you a little bit about repurchasing shares. You said in the shareholder meeting, I predict we'll get a little more liberal in repurchasing shares. How much more aggressive will you get? And do you think that's going to be a problem potentially with the Democrats?
Well, a politician that's in the business of howling about something, trying to create a sense of outrage, they're always complaining about something. And it is true that a lot of people, it got so popular to purchase shares that some people repurchased them even when they were too high priced. We will never do that. We're only going to buy them back if they're too cheap. But of course that ought to be done. If you had a partnership of 3 of your crippled relatives and one of them needed some money, wouldn't you buy out the crippled relative with the company's money? It's just simple morality. But I do think it's being overdone by some people, and it undoubtedly is being done to prop up values, which I regard as an improper use of the share repurchasing technique.
Should there be laws about that?
No. There are laws, but we shouldn't be telling people what the right price is.
Right. So I want to ask you a little bit about the social safety net we were talking about and Medicare. And do you support Medicare for all? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Well, I'm one of the few Republicans you'll ever talk to that thinks we should have a single-payer system, but not one of the type that we're going to get. If you look at the single-payer system of Singapore, it costs 20% of what ours cost, and that's an advanced, civilized, high-income nation. And of course, the people are a lot healthier. Well, of course, I'd rather spend 80% less and have the people healthier. And of course, I'd like to have American manufacturers not have this terrible burden of unnecessary health costs that affects their competitiveness in the world. So we have an insane medical system that grew like Topsy by accident with the help of a lot of dumb governmental intervention. Not all of it was dumb, but some of it was. And the system is ridiculous. If a young family has to pay a $5,000 deductible to have a baby, they don't really have medical insurance. It isn't just the Medicare that's wrong. The whole damn system is going wrong. And the amount of unnecessary tests and unnecessary prolongation of inevitable death that's going on is a national disgrace. Of course I don't like it.
Have you ever thought about moving to Singapore, Charlie?
Well, no, but I'd like to move some of Singapore's results into the United States. They have practically no deaths from opioids. They have a low crime rate. They have no debt of the whole country. No, they're doing a lot right. I wish to hell our politicians in both parties would spend a lot more time studying Singapore.
But some people say, many people say, it's an authoritarian government. There's a lack of freedom there.
It's a democracy. It just does such a good job that the people keep re-electing it. I like that result. What the hell's wrong with that?
I was with some people just a few minutes ago, actually, and they were kind of recounting some of your zingers. Do you spend time before the meeting, say, oh, I've got like these 6 zingers I'm going to get out during the annual meeting?
Never. Think of all the people you know that have tried to take one extra step and have fallen off a cliff.
Well, on that happy note, we will conclude the meeting.
That's just come to you?
Yes. I think the meetings work better if they're spontaneous. If we were scripting things, I don't think people would like it.
So you and Warren don't say anything at all before you sit down there?
0.
You have no idea what's going to happen?
That is correct.
That's fantastic. So I want to ask you just a question or two about growing up. And you were at the University of Michigan, and you dropped out and joined the Army, right?
I certainly did.
And
we all did in those days.
Yeah, so did the Army influence you?
Well, everything influences you in your past life. And yes, of course it influenced me. I never wanted to be in a big bureaucracy. I was well toward the bottom. I finally got to be a second lieutenant in the Army. I was way down in the ranks, and nobody gave a damn what I thought about any subject. They just gave me a little job to do, and I was supposed to do it. And of course I didn't like that as well as having a freer rein to control my own destiny and so on. So I am much better adapted to being a capitalist operator than I am to being a cog in a bureaucracy.
Did you ever get in trouble in the Army?
Of course.
Tell us about that.
Well, my senior officers could tell I thought they were wrong. And I tried to hide it, and they could still tell. And so, of course, I never got in any serious trouble, but who in the hell likes a junior officer? You look over there, and he's plainly indicating he thinks you're an idiot.
So that didn't work out too well.
Well, it worked out all right. I did my work well enough so they didn't bother me. But it was not a milieu where I was going to succeed.
Right. So how did you figure out? A lot of people look at your life and would want to emulate what you've done. Is that something that people can do? Look at someone like yourself and see your path. I mean, you're in real estate law, then investing. What do you even consider yourself? A businessman? How would you describe what you do?
Well, I don't consider myself I think my way of thinking will work for anybody, of trying to be very rational and disciplined. So I think that much. But to flit around to various careers and go into the other fellow's professional territory and try and outdo him and do all kinds of things like that, I think will not work for most people. And so I always I'm always being visited by young men who say, I'm practicing law and I don't like it. I'd rather be a billionaire. How can I do it? And I tell them, well, I'll tell you a story. A young man goes to see Mozart. And he says, Mozart, I want to start composing symphonies. And Mozart said, how old are you? And the guy says, 22. And he says, you're too young to do symphonies. And the guy says, yes, but you were 10 years old when you were composing symphonies. And Mozart says, yes, but I wasn't running around asking other people how to do it.
Right.
So I think this flitting around business is something not everybody should try.
Yeah, I think
if I tried it again, it might not have worked as well.
You said just figure out how
I may
to
have
do
been
something
quite
and do
lucky.
it. Why were you were lucky?
Yeah, I think I had some luck, yes.
Well, but I think there's more to it than that. I mean, where were you lucky?
Yes, the combination of luck and skill. That's what all good records are.
Right. So let me just ask you a few more questions. And do you eat all that peanut brittle up there, right?
Yeah.
Is that your one peanut brittle day, or do you eat peanut brittle? Really?
Yeah, it is.
So the other 364 days you don't eat much of it.
They put it there. I think Warren is so businesslike. He likes promoting peanut brittle at the annual meeting.
Well, don't the other Berkshire brands get jealous and say, why don't you put like a railroad train up there or something like that?
We got a whole exhibit hall full of other brands promoting one another at the Berkshire meeting. You cannot claim that we're under-promoting.
I would never claim that. But you know, the Coke people and the Seas people get special placement up there, don't
Yes, they do, but those are two very... Seas was our first great brand, and Coke is one of the great... It's a great soft drink brand of the world. So they're entitled to have a special place.
Do other companies ask to get put up there, though?
Well, they all push themselves forward as much as we'll let them.
Is that a yes?
Yes, of course they want to be pushed up.
And finally, Charlie, I want to ask you a little bit about philanthropy. And, you know, it seems like Warren's been sort of a little bit more upfront about that with Bill Gates and the Giving Pledge. And I know you're philanthropic as well. What is your thinking on that? How upfront?
Well, I wouldn't sign the Giving Pledge because I've already transferred so much to my children that I've already violated it. So I think I'm seeking false credit if I join them and say I'm a big philanthropist that's going to give more than half of my wealth to charity. I've already given more than half of it to my children. So I can't join them. It's like coming back from the dead. I can't do it.
But doesn't that make Warren mad? I mean,
No,
Charlie,
he's not mad. When is Warren mad about somebody else's? Warren thinks that each Berkshire Hathaway is entitled to do with his own money what he damn pleases.
So let me just follow up on that, what you did then. What was your thinking in terms of giving away money like that, though?
Well, it's simple as itself. I had a wonderful wife. Most wives worry that the husband, if he survives, will get involved with some nurse or something in his dotage, and that the money will go away from the children. And I knew that my dead wife would have preferred to have the money go to the children, so I arranged that she got her wish.
Right. So any thoughts on how the meeting is going to be different next year? I mean, when do you start talking about that, or do you even talk about the annual meeting?
We never talk about it. We just do what works as long as it works, and when it stops working or it indicates it's going to stop working, we'll stop.
Did Apple say they want to have some exhibit in the convention center this year?
I had no discussion with them. I don't have any idea what they're doing.
And do you see a time when Ajit and Greg and Ted and Todd will come up there with you at some point?
I don't know how it will morph. I don't think that what worked in one era has to be duplicated in another. I don't think what we're doing would work for many people. I think it was an historical accident. We didn't do it on purpose. We just sort of drifted into it. When it worked, we fanned the flames. But we didn't create it with any forethought. And I think some later generation will have some different system. I think there's more wiseassery in our meeting than would be appropriate forever. And I'm the principal wise-ass.
Yeah, you are. Charlie Munger, Vice Chairman of Berkshire Hathaway.
Wise-ass.
Wise-ass.
Right.
Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Andy Serwer. You've been watching Influencers. We'll see you next time.